Shalom. I want to start this off by giving honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Yahweh Kakwadash. Peace and salutations to the elect men and elder men that are diligently pushing forth the will and doctrine of Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shai, according to the true understanding of the scriptures. To you, I say Shalom. This is going to be a quick lesson. The title is going to be Stay in Your Lane. Focus on your role and avoid distractions. Right? So we're going to hop straight into it. First scripture I got lined up here is, all things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. Just because you could do something doesn't mean that you should, right? Just because you have access to something doesn't mean that you should be seeking to try to entertain it or entertain it or try to obtain it, you know? Because the scriptures also go on to say, which you will see in Sirach 37 verse 27, it says, my son, prove thy soul in thy life, see what is evil for it, and give not that unto it. For all things are not profitable for all men, neither hath every soul pleasure in anything. Right? And with reading these scriptures, right, these two, it's important to understand, like, this is something that you have to meditate on. This is something that you have to actually inquire as far as knowing yourself, knowing your measure, and knowing what it is that the Lord wants from you, right? Understanding and knowing what it, like, the reason why you're a part of this, you know, and your purpose, you know. Those are the things that you need to be focusing on and fine-tuning to make sure that you got it, you know. Shouldn't be going out your way to be trying to do extra if it's not in your measure to do extra, right? And with you doing that, right, as far as you learning to understand what it is that's important for you to do, or what it is, what is your purpose, right? You're only putting yourself in a better position with the Lord, you know, in your relationship with Him. But if you do the opposite, right, and you're only like if you're doing the opposite and you're going out of your way, right, you're going out of your way, you're putting yourself in a position to get caught up in something, you know, and that's something to be mindful of, right? Because the scriptures also say what? This is Ephesians 4 and verse 27. It says, neither give place to the devil, right? So, in all that you do, you should be looking to please the Lord, and also you should be looking to make sure that you're not giving place to Satan. You know, that's something that's very important to keep in mind of when you're going amongst your day-to-day and you're entertaining or you're interacting or whatever it is that you're doing on your day-to-day. You want to be looking to, how can I prevent Satan from fucking with me, from messing with me in any kind of regard in the midst of me doing these things, right? Whether it be big or small, you know, whether it be entertaining something that's, you know, more on the worldly side, or even entertaining things that's of the spirit, you know, because if you're not in the right spirit trying to deal with spiritual things, you only going to put yourself in a bad position, you know. And that could be anything, It it just depends on what it is that you're dealing with, right? But in order for you to be able to know that or understand that or see that, is you have to meditate on the things that you deal with on a day to day. You have to meditate. Think about, consider what are the things that you're dealing with on a day to day basis, to where to know whether or not any of those things are things or ways that give place for Satan to just enter and mess with you. We know he's like a roaring lion seeking to devour us. So we need to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves, as far as being wise to make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a position to get destroyed, right? And harmless, so that way, we're still clean and pure, if you will, right? If it be the Lord's will, you know what I'm saying? But the point is really just making sure that you're where you need to be at with the Lord, so that way anything that comes your way, you're good, So that way, the things that you do deal with, it's only going to bring you good fortune, It's only going to bring you more peace. It's only going to bring you more comfort. It's only going to bring good things to you, to where you're good, It's not going on to destroy you or your spirit, or yourself or your mind, right? The Lord said he prays not to take us out of this world, but to keep us from the evil, right? And the way that you do that, because again, we understand how this ministry works, faith and works, right? So you gotta show faith through your works. So that means you gotta put in the work to be able to figure out these things. You know what I'm saying? Because closed mouths don't get fed. So I'm gonna get my next scripture. This is 1 Thessalonians 4 and verse 3. It says, "For this is the will of God, even your sanctification, that ye should abstain from fornication." Right? And we understand fornication, is illicit sex, but fornication starts in the spirit before it does in the flesh. Any action started with a thought, right? So you want to make sure that you're you're staying committed to the Lord by following him. You want to make sure that you're going about these you're going about things in a way that's going to please him. Just as we want our women to think in that same likeness, as far as when they go on to do things, they're paying attention to their actions in a way to where they're being considerate and looking to make sure that their actions still please their Lord, right? Being their husband, You want to do the same thing, because we're liking onto the Lord's woman, right? So if we're liking onto the Lord's woman, we need to be seeking to please the Lord, with all that we do. Because with us doing that, he's only going to want to bless us, take care of us, because we're showing him how it is that we're considering him, we're worshiping him, and we're trusting in him to be able to take care of us, right? And continuing here, verse 4 says that every one of you should know how to possess his vessel in sanctification and honor, right? And then the NLT says then each of you will control his own body and live in holiness and honor. You see, to have that control takes discipline, you know, and you want to build discipline in staying in your lane, not doing a whole lot, not doing the most, not doing extra, not going over beyond if it's not in your measure to do so. You know, you want to go over and beyond within your measure, but you gotta have discipline to know what is your measure. You know, and that's something that's very important to know and to have knowledge of, especially living in this world, because this world does not push for you to know you. It pushes you to just be a robot, to be common, profane, to be and uplift things that are wicked, right? As if it's good, and the things that are good to uplift it in a way as if it's not, you know. Those aren't the things that we want to entertain. Those aren't the things that you want to get yourself involved in, right? And again, it could be of the smallest matters or the biggest matters, you know. You may have like looking at a scale, right? You might have one big rock on one side, but if you have a shit ton of rocks, right, on the other side, that sum of rocks can accumulate to balance out with that one big rock, you know. And that's why the scriptures say, he that contendeth little things shall fall little by little, you know. That's why it's important to make sure that you're not drunk under the influence of this world. No Babylon juice, you know. You don't want to be in that position, you know. Nor do you want your family to be in that position. So you want to just make sure that you're staying mindful of those things and making sure that you're not putting yourself in a position to go on to destroy yourself, right? Even in the midst of you trying to, again, like wanting to do something that is known to be righteous, if you're not right yourself, you can't expect for that to end in a good way. You know, you can't expect there to be good results within that. So those are things to really pay attention to, you know, making sure that you're on point where you need to be at, staying in your lane, and then assessing what it is that makes sense for you to do and what makes sense for you not to do, you know. Prove what is evil for and give not that onto it. Because not every soul has pleasure in everything, you know, roughly paraphrasing the Sirach 37:27, right? In verse 28, I believe. So, continuing here, let me see. This is Proverbs 15:10. It says, correction is grievous unto him that forsaketh the way, and he that hateth reproof shall die. It says in the NLT, whoever abandons the right path will be severely disciplined. Whoever hates correction will die. You see? So you want to be in a position to where you're being disciplined in a way to where it's not it's not affliction, you know, in a bad regard, you know. It's like how the scriptures say it's better to judge yourself than to be judged by the Lord, you know. Because the level of the hand being put on it is completely different. You know what I'm saying? Man versus the Lord, like it's astronomical, you know. So you want to make sure that you're putting yourself in a position to where you're on point, because you're putting yourself, you're disciplining yourself to stay on point, you know. Like if the Lord, if the Lord got put his hands on you, what is the end gonna look like? You know what I'm saying? Of that, right? The scriptures also mention that, you know what I'm saying? Woe unto him that desires the day of the Lord, for what end shall it be for you? Roughly paraphrasing, I believe that's in Amos, you know? But that's something to really consider as well, because you may want the Lord, you know, because everybody sees this world is off. So everybody, you know, that is in the know or has an idea of what is to know, right? They are wishing for things to be better. You know what I'm saying? But you got to make sure that you're better first. You're in a position to be able to receive what that better is. Because if you're not helping and you're only making things worse, right? You're not equipped how you need to be equipped. You know? You don't have what it is that you need to have to be able to receive those things from the Lord. And if you don't have those things, then you're only hurting yourself, right? And you're only hurting others in the process. You know? You got to be really careful as far as your actions and what decisions that you go on to make, because your actions, for those specifically that's within this ministry, but also those that have some type of authority, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, whether it be you have kids, family, you know what I'm saying, however, right? Your actions have consequences, you know? There's a cause and an effect to these things. So you want to make sure that you're in a position to where you're not going forth to hurt others and things like that. You know? Set thy house in order, as the scriptures say. Right? So you want to be making sure that you're seeking, right? You're seeking the knowledge of the Lord, you know? Well over trying to just do things and incorporate yourself in a whole bunch of stuff, you know? There's certain matters that men don't need to speak about. There's certain things that men don't need to do. There's certain things that you don't need to buy. There's certain things that you don't need to spend money on, or certain things that you don't need to get yourself entangled with. There's certain conversations that you don't need to be a part of, you know? Like Yahweh Shai, when he walked the earth, right, there were certain conversations that were had with specific men, and certain conversations that weren't, you know? Not every disciple was a part of every conversation, you know? When what is it? When it the account where it was, I believe, Peter, and I believe it was somebody else that was with him, that was there to be able to see what is it? It's the specific account where I know I'm gonna butcher it, but it's the specific account where basically like two men were with Yahweh Shai to be able to see things of the spirit world, you know, right? To where they were able to see, I believe it was Moses and Abraham, you know. Again, I roughly paraphrasing that, so you know, brothers know what I'm talking about. You can correct me, you know, but that account just goes on to show not everybody is exposed nor are experiencing the same things, you know. Because if it's not of your measure, you know what I'm saying, it's not for you. Yahweh Shai understood that. That's why he didn't have everybody with him in that moment, within that account, you know. And it's okay for that to be the case if that's for you, you know, or if it's not for you. Because again, it's all about what is your measure. What is within the parameters of your lane, you know. Once you understand that, right, then you know how to maneuver correctly, how you can go on to continue to please the Lord, you know. So let me see. This is Psalms 37 and verse 7. It says, "Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself because of him who prospereth in his way, because of the man who bringeth wickedness, who bringeth wicked devices to pass. Right? In the NLT it says, be still in the presence of the Lord and wait patiently for him to act. Don't worry about evil people who prosper, or fret about their wicked schemes. You see? So we're in this world that we know is wicked, that we know is evil, right? But we are also trying to make sure that we're in a position to where we're not being taken by the evil, right? So just because you see all these things that's being promoted on social media and the things that the leaders of this world go on to push and promote, as far as the things that you can into and get in the mix of, that doesn't mean that's a part of your measure. And you don't want to be affected by those things. So don't worry about them. You know, your position is your position. The Lord's going to increase you however it's meant to be, however there's meant to be an increase, you know? And again, how you choose to go to on to deal with things and meditate on things is what's going to help, is what's going to make or break those possibilities, right? If you don't got it, you just gonna be able to be pulled and tossed to and fro. That's not the position of a man of the Lord, you know, or of the Lord's elect, right? Those of the Lord's elect are gonna make sure that they're in a position to where they're set where they need to be at, and they're considering the things that they need to be considering. That they're entertaining these specific things that are meant to be entertained by them, you know, because with them entertaining it is only going to bring them good, not bad, you know. This is something that sits under the parameters of what's right or wrong for them, you know. Ultimately what's right or wrong, but also knowing what is right or wrong for you, right? Just because you see men in the world doing things and obtaining these things and living a certain lifestyle does not mean that's the lifestyle that you were trying to live, that you should be trying to live, right? And I'm speaking to myself first and foremost when I say that. But nonetheless, these are things to really consider, you know? So, that's pretty much it, you know? Lower the points has been proven, you know? Because this is definitely a topic that is manifold in a lot of ways. So, I'm going to pretty much just leave it there, you know? Again, stay in your lane, right? Focus on your role, right, or roles, and avoid distractions, right? Avoid distractions that's only going to hurt you. That distractions that are going to put you in a position to where you're giving place to Satan, you know? So now he's got one up on you, right? You don't want to do that, you know? Put yourself in a position to where you can constantly please the Lord, right? Be that example for Israel to be able to follow. And that's simply it as far as the point. So with that, I'm going to say, Call Allah, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Wahawah Kakwadash. Lord willing, this has been edifying. With that, I'm going to say, Shalom.